Welcome to this video from the Australian College looking at how to install an SME server. Now we're going to install it on VirtualBox. There are a couple of assumptions made. Assumption number one is that you have either the CD with the ISO or you have the ISO stored locally. VirtualBox is a very useful program for installing multiple operating systems, and to start off with we're going to choose new and we're going to give it a name. Now what I'd like you to do is I'm going to use my name and SME and server so I can identify it. The type will be Linux operating system and the version will be 2.6. On next, I'm going to give it around about 2 gig worth of virtual RAM to play with. I'm going to create the virtual hard drive, and while the default is 8 gig, I'm actually going to give it 20 gig to have a decent size to play with. And I'm going to create it. Now this is the initial parameters set up. To allow your virtual machine to connect to network, we're going to have to play around with the network settings. The way to do that is come over to settings, clicking on settings, going down to network. Now we're going to choose a couple of different settings. We're going to choose an internal network for adapter number 1. Okay, and it should be the Intel Pro. Promiscuous mode, I'm going to allow all. It works usually with all settings, but I found that I have least problems when allowing all in promiscuous mode. And the name Brett Internal. Well, it's very easy to identify. I'm then going to set up adapter number 2. Now, adapter number 2 is going to have NAT. Okay, and under the advanced settings I'm just going to leave them as the default. So just going through again, number 1, internal network, relevant name, adapter type and promiscuous mode. Adapter number 2, NAT has been set up, and all the rest are the default settings. The reality is that you don't need to play around with anything else, but you can come in here and change any of these. Now the boot order, if you are going to any booting off the network and you'd like to include that, then yes, you can include the network here. I will be doing from either of these, CD or hard disk, so I'm just going to leave them as is and click on OK. As you can see, it's now updated the display to show the network adapters both 1 and 2. Let's go forward into actually install. Click on Start. When Start appears, you'll have an auto info that tells you that your auto capture keyboard option is turned on and how to do so. Click on OK. Now, selecting a startup disk. If you have a CD drive, it'll detect it straight away. I'm going to choose an optical file from that I've saved earlier on my network, and here's my SME file. Clicking on Open and click on Start. Now the process itself is actually fairly straightforward. You'll get your immediate launch screen. Okay, I'm going to install, so I'll just hit Enter. It will run through and set out the various environments. Okay, because it doesn't support mouse integration, okay, it'll just tell you how to go about doing it if you need to do anything with the mouse. And as you can see, the various parts of the system are loading. Now the actual install itself actually doesn't take that long. To begin testing the CD media before installation, press OK. Simply use your Tab key and skip this, so you don't need to do so. Simply use the Tab key to pop between the two and choose Skip. And rather than it running a test on your CD drive to make sure it works, it will continue with the install. As I said, I'm just doing this directly from a file located on my hard drive, so there's no need for me to run the test. Language selection, once again using the tab key, English is fine, and model keyboard, once again using the tab key, yes, and it will then say it's going to partition the virtual drive. I'm happy to do that, and it's going to go through, it'll find the installation files. The time zone, you can choose the appropriate one for your area. I just have to scroll down till I find Australia, went too far, and let's find Sydney, there it is, tab, choose the OK, so as you can see the tab will let you go in all three, and it will now start unpacking the installation package itself. It's fairly straightforward. Okay, once again it'll give you the warning, just tab across, it's like letting you know it's going to reformat any data will be, and it's also going to create a log file. Okay, the process, as I said, is actually a fairly straightforward process for the installation. It's a lot quicker process than installing most other serving operating systems, Windows in particular. And one of the things I do like about the installation process is that it gives you a countdown as well, which is actually fairly relevant. As we go through doing this install, after the install is completed, we'll then run through setting up some of the features of an SME server. So as you can see, there's a total of 567 packages, and it'll literally just give you a countdown as it goes through, the size of the file, how long, and as you can see it pops along at a fairly brisk pace. SME server is a very viable server for a lot of small and medium businesses these days. It's a very user-friendly server in many respects, fairly straightforward and easy to manipulate. If you are used to working in a graphical user interface, it has a web interface that you can utilize to manipulate. If you're capable of and handy enough to be able to work within the actual system tool itself, it's mainly text-based and just using your tab and arrow keys, it's very easy to configure. As you can see, it's only been a minute or two and we're already at the halfway mark of the install. Now, one of the good things with using VirtualBox is if for whatever reason the install doesn't work out, it's usually not too much of a problem to actually go back through and redo the installation process. For example, if you forgot to set up the network prior to running the install and you notice that as you're halfway through, simply let the install run to completion, go through the various steps, and then delete the file, go back and do it again. I know this may be slightly frustrating, but as you can see, we're already three-quarters of the way through the installation, and it's only been a few minutes. So 4/5 of the way through, and it's only got 62 little packages remaining, and as you can see, a very quick and succinct installation. Now, after this actual installation is run through, there's a very small configuration phase. When that happens, I'll take you through it as well, but it's a very easy to install server. The beauty of an SME server is that it allows you to be to use it in a number of different roles. So as you can see, we've now finished the initial part. It's doing the update of the log file that it said it would do at the beginning, and it says congratulations, complete, remove any media and press enter to reboot. So we're now going to reboot, and as you can see, it's sending the termination signals through to all of the various parts of the machine. Okay, and also a little message from VirtualBox there, but it's done the reboot and we're back to our install. Now you don't have to touch any key, by the way. It'll actually, I'll just click on close that off, it'll actually just reboot itself normally, go back through, and it will initialize itself. Once that's done, we'll then move to the next part of the install, which is basically setting up the admin user environment, and I'll take that through a little bit slower, just so that we're very clear on what needs to be done to be able to set the machine up in a virtual environment. So in particular, you can talk on the network. If you happen to get a fail on any of these green OKs, by the way, it means for whatever reason the machine hasn't done the install properly. Simplest process, continue going through as much as possible, but then delete and redo. Do I wish to restore from backup? This is the default one. The answer is going to be no. Once again, I can simply, by using my left or right arrow keys, juggle between, but it's going to be no. Welcome to the server console. Okay, we need to make a series of basic network configurations. Okay, now you must set up an administrator password. For the purpose of this exercise, can I ask you to simply type in lowercase, because it is case sensitive, your full name, first and surname. The reason being, it's an easy password to remember. Now you are going to be prompted during this install that it is not secure enough, and I'll agree with that 100%. However, it's simply for the purpose of this exercise. In reality, you would use a combination of upper, lowercase and special characters, but you'd always start with lowercase. Hit next. It says the password you have chosen is not a good choice because it does not contain special characters. Do you wish to choose a better one? I'm going to say no, and it'll prompt me to type the password again. So as I said, for your password, please choose your first and surname together, but all in lowercase. Alright, now please enter the primary domain name for your server. Okay, and as you can see, it pops up as my company. I'm simply going to type in Brett. Once again, this will be in lowercase only, and I'll leave it as .local. Okay, so this will be the default domain for your email and web server. Next, please enter the system name for the server. So once again, in lowercase, this is going to be Brett SME. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it at that because it's very easy. You can type in server if you like and use your backspace, but just Brett SME. Why? It's very easy to remember. So once again, you'd use your first name and SME. Click in next. Now select the proper device for your local network. Okay, as you can see, it's actually going to use adapter number 1 that we have chosen earlier on, and look, I'm quite happy for that choice. Okay, it's going to enter a default IP address. As you can see, it's a protected class C IP address, the 192.168. Okay, and I'm going to leave the default settings. Obviously, if you're going to set this up in a real network, you'd have a chat and work out the actual network configuration you're going to use. Okay, and it's got its default subnet mask. Okay, now I'm going to set this up as a server and gateway. The reason I'm going to set this up as a server and gateway, I'm actually going to allow internet connections to happen. Okay, so next, and it's going to be a dedicated. In other words, I'm going to be using an internal network card and connecting to an external modem. Okay, and as you can see, you need to select the proper device for your external network. Okay, and remember we set this device number 2 up with NAT earlier on, and that's why we're going to choose device number 2. Okay, now DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Okay, as you can see, for cable modem users, select DHCP. Okay, this one we're going to use DHCP, send Ethernet address as a client identifier, which is basically saying, hey, listen, we're going to use the local machine. Okay, we don't need to use a dynamic DNS service, domain name service. The reason being, in this instance, the domain we're actually setting up as a virtual machine with this one domain. We're actually not popping it onto the internet. Okay, next. Provide DHCP to your local network. Yes, we can allow that on a thing, our local network. In other words, this machine can work internally and provide DHCP services. Okay, and once again, I'm simply going to choose the default ranges that are provided here. As you can see, once again, they're a Class C IP address. Okay, and they've specified a range for me. Now, if your server does not have access to the internet, or you have special requirements for DNS, enter the DNS server. Once again, don't need to enter DNS server here, simply choose the default. Okay, and do I wish to activate my changes? If I say no here, I can actually go back through all of the screens using the no and the back buttons and make needed changes. But look, these are the changes I'd like to have, and yes. What's going to happen is that they're going to configure those settings on the machine, which will allow my machine to connect to the internet, okay, via my local network. So if I'm at work or at home and I have an internet connection, my adapter card number 2 will actually pick up that internet connection, and I can download and connect and surf the net if I'd like to. Okay, my internal card will work on the internal addresses only. Now, this normally only takes a minute or two to actually configure the actual settings. Once that is happening, or has happened, it'll shut down and restart, and you will need to log into the server. Now, the default login is going to be admin, okay, and the password once again will be your first name and your surname together in lowercase. Now please note the password doesn't go across the screen as in a Windows environment. It simply will enter one on top of the other. Hit enter, and congratulations, you're into your server console. As you can see, and I'll be doing this in a number of later videos, you have a number of different options. I hope you've enjoyed this short video on working in SME server. I hope you find it very useful. Thank you for your attention.